Good day, everyone, on this Good Friday. I was going to go outside and do this, it's a beautiful day out, but when I went out, there was some raindrops. So I'm back here in the garage again, sharing the fruits of my meditation. The subject of today's meditation is no surprise. It is that of the cross of Christ. The central theme, I would say, or the central idea today of Good Friday is the crucifixion of Jesus, his cross. And in today's subject of the meditation, it brings forth this vivid description of what it meant to Christ to carry his cross, to be nailed to a cross, to suffer. And one of the fruits that came through a lot is that Jesus shows his love for us through what could be considered an act of weakness. He allowed other people to do things to him. He was subject to this violence and ultimately this horrible indignation of being nailed to a cross like a common criminal. And what that draws to me personally is on Good Friday, I need to remember that Jesus wants my weakness. Jesus wants my brokenness. Doesn't necessarily want my strength. And this plays out in my life over and over again. And it's one of the themes, the central themes of when through university, I spent most of my years in university living in community with a group of Basilian priests. And in living in community with them, I really understood this idea or this truth of our faith that Jesus wants our weakness. We maybe always, all of us had this journey of faith. You know, we get on fire with the faith. We're in love with Jesus. We have this first fervor that just explodes, this sort of adrenaline rush of faith, this youthful faith. And if that's not, contained or tempered or directed in the proper way, it sometimes gets fizzled out and no longer there. And we feel depressed or like we're not doing what we should be doing because we don't have those feelings of being close to Christ anymore. And I was in that point. I was in that point of my spiritual life where that first fervor of knowing Jesus Christ in the church, that emotion and that feelings of that, it was on the wane. It was there. And living in community, I realized that Jesus just didn't want what I was good at. Jesus actually was calling me to do stuff that I just wasn't good at, and I would fail miserably. One of the things that happened when I was there, I was called to work at a community called Our Lady of Guadalupe, and it worked with inner city people, mostly indigenous people, First Nations people, and I wasn't I thought to myself, like, what do I have to offer here? I'm not good at that. I don't necessarily really like people. I struggle with trying to keep a conversation going, all those things, but I felt a great draw there with Sister Rianne. And in my sharing my weakness, two things happened. One, I realized that my life is meaningless unless it was centered on Christ. Because everything I did there was not me doing it. I knew that because naturally I wasn't good at any of this stuff like catechesis or just being with people. And that it showed me that Christ can work even through me, and especially through my weakness. Another thing that really came up is to take my cross seriously. So what do I mean by this? When I was working there or when I was volunteering there, I went to Father Boyd and I said, and this, maybe I was doing this work for a couple months, and I told him, I said, I feel really sorry for these people that I'm there. They live in poverty and everything else. And Father Boyd said to me, well, I bet you that's what they think about you. And I said, well, what do you mean? He says, well, they just think that some lonely university boy goes and spends a couple hours with them in order to, relieve his boredom. Like, what a sad and pathetic life. And he said that kind of tongue in cheek, but what he was getting at is that if we truly look at our cross as a gift from Christ, and we look at our weakness as that weakness and that Jesus works through it, is that we won't be condescending to other people. We won't look at other people's situation and think somehow that we're greater than that or that we have something superior to offer. Father Boyd was getting at the point, I think, of Good Friday, is that in order to transform the world, we need to give our weakness to Christ, and we need to embrace the cross that Christ gives us. Instead of looking around and saying, oh, well, that cross is a lot bigger than mine or anything else, like somehow that we have this superiority, both maybe spiritually or temporally. And today, and as we have this Good Friday, that's the two fruits of my experience with the meditation today. As I said before, the virtue of this month is love of neighbor. And one of the things that I want to do over the course, in these next couple of days is to help other people carry their own cross. And not in the way that I think that I'm better than them or anything else like this, but just in a sense of solidarity, that we're all together, and that I can relieve some people's mental or physical suffering just by being present and just by helping carrying that cross, just to be there. And that's very important. I think that's a big part of loving our neighbor, is to be present. And I know how difficult it is right now in this time of COVID-19 and all this stuff that's going on. But I know there will be opportunities in this coming weeks, coming days, even coming hours that I can do that in my own family or my community around here. So my prayers are always with you, especially on this Good Friday. I pray that the grace and love of Jesus Christ through his crucifixion comes to you this day, however that might look or be experienced. I pray in anticipation that we will see each other face to face, that we will shake hands and embrace, and that we will share in the supper of the Lord, that we will share in the sacraments, in the great mysteries of our faith. But until that time, I also pray that you keep this Triduum holy, full of prayer, perseverance, and sacrifice.
Prayer after meditation. I thank you, my God, for the good resolutions, affections, and inspirations that you have communicated to me in this meditation. I beg your help in putting them into effect. My Immaculate Mother, Saint Joseph, my Father, and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me. Amen.